This Duxtop Induction Cooktop is said to have a variable wattage output, which may make it appealing for cooking on portable power stations. Let's get into this a little bit. What up? I'm Ive. I like powering stuff from the sun, saving some coin in the process, and being prepared for power outages, right? Right. I always wanted one of these little portable cooktops. I mean, way before I got into solar, I originally started with wanting the little coil one, and there's a whole reason for that I won't get into. But just being able to cook during a power outage or to cook out and about was really appealing to me. First, let's talk about some of the features. It has quite a few cool features. You have this nice display. I mean, it's okay. It's not crazy. You hit a fan turn on. I'm gonna turn it off for the sake of doing the video. It has up and down buttons, a menu button. It has a boil button where you can instantly do that, keep warm, a timer, which I think is really cool. It came in handy when I was using this to warm up some water with eucalyptus oil. And shout out to MJ who gave me that little tip. It helped out while I wasn't feeling well. And then there's a lock feature that stops you from changing these things so no kids come along or you don't come along and mess it up. I'm not sure you would want a kid around a hot joint, but whatever. It has a lock feature. Here is some documentation that came with it. You can see it has power mode and then temperature mode, and it shows what that is suitable for: deep frying, sauteing, heating milk, etc. Here's another one, compatible with magnetic cookware. Give some examples. This is the instruction booklet. We're not gonna do that, but there you go. I learned about this from Wirecutter. Wirecutter talked about the fact that this had a variable watt usage output, and it could go from about 100 to 1800. Now, why that's so appealing to me is because we have different types of power stations, right? You may not have a power station that can bang out the whole 1500 watts. You may have a Jackery or something like that. We'll test some various power stations during the video. But I like the fact that it had variable output. When I looked into induction stoves before, what it would say is it would have like an 800 watt, 1100 watt, and 1500 watt. I feel like this one with its levels should have some kind of variable output that you can adjust. We'll see how much that holds up, but I like the fact that they mentioned that. So let's take a look around the device. You can see the buttons are at the front. It has a very slimline form factor, super thick cable to pull all that power through it. Turn it over. Has a fan underneath, and then we go around. There's not much else going on here. You just have the fan output over here, some rubber, they're not rubber, they're actually plastic feet that are built into the base that give it a little lift up off of the ground. And that's pretty much it. Around the other side, we don't have anything else. When I first tried to use this, I would get an error. And what it does is it errors out if you don't have something that works with the stove on top. And then if you turn it on, you're gonna have to hear the fan for a little bit. If you turn it on and you have nothing on there, you can't do anything. You can't set it up. It just errors out like that. That's the same thing that happens when you have the pot on here that doesn't work. So you can't adjust anything. I thought it was broken at first. I was turning it on and off and nothing would happen. So sir, it appears that you are right. Metal pot. Drop it on. It sounds like the Starship Enterprise is beaming something.
Wayne, coming through with the common sense. Thank you.
I turned it off and I was waiting for the fan to turn off, but I'm looking at the DuranEner and you can see it's consuming 4 watts with just the fan on. So that's pretty cool to know. I wasn't planning on recording that. So when you turn it on, it actually went up to 5 watts. Now we also need to talk about pots and pans. Joints that work and joints that don't work. I have some pots over here so I can show you pretty much what's going on here. Is what I noticed is these kind don't work. They're not magnetic, and these kind do. And how I tested that, I just grabbed some magnets from my kids' toy set, and that kind of goes on. Actually, let me show you a bit better. I basically just grabbed my kids' stuff and put the joint on the bottom and see if it was magnetic. You can see that these it sticks. And then when you grab something like this, you put the magnet on the bottom, nothing. So now I have placed a pot on top. It has about, an inch of water in this little whatever quart pot it is. I'm going to turn the device on. And then now you see, you hit menu. It starts out at power level 5.0. Now, I don't know if that has a correlation between the watt usage, but it can go down as low as 0.5. And 0.5 is actually doing what I would presume is nothing. I'm watching the output over here and it's saying 5 watts. Oh no, it just kicked back up. What it seems to be doing is heating up to a 0.5 power level, which is not much, so it doesn't stay on. It just came back on and it went back up to 500 watts. So let's toss it up to, let's say 2.5 and see what happens. So over here we have about 700 watts that came through. So instead of kind of dealing with this intermittent heating capacity, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it all the way back up to 5.0 because that's where it defaults from. And then I'm going to let this sit for a little bit and see what it actually does if this power draw stays there, because it's trying to maintain a 5 level. So you see 700 watts. Dang. ShakyCamera.com. So that has settled in real good. One thing about induction stoves is they're really fast. This has only been on for maybe about, what? You can see it's still at 60%. If you pay attention to the percentage before, it's using about 700 watts. And this is almost starting to show bubbles. So let's go ahead and just turn it all the way up to its highest setting. See how much power we draw and see if the DuranEner can handle that draw, because it's a 2000 watt hour device. This one is rated at as high as 1800 watts. So we're going to go power all the way up to 10. 10 is the highest it goes. You can see at 10 it has that little icon, and that's the boil icon. I'm going to keep this going live because you can see that these bubbles are starting to form. And I'm looking at the DuranEner and it's using 1250 watts. So this is pretty fast for an induction cooktop, and it's not using nearly as much power as it's rated to use. I wonder if that has something to do with the surface area that we're using. I do have maybe a bigger pot. Is this pot bigger? Yes, a little bit. No, it's about the same size. It's not that much bigger. I don't have a bigger pot that I can use on here. I've kept this clip going live. It's a minute 30, and you can see that water starting to boil. Now this is useful because in a situation like this, you don't want to be waiting around ready to cook. So the fact that this can kind of get going really swiftly, boil your water for your coffee or whatever you weirdos drink when you're out in the woods. I say that with love. Y'all know I love y'all woods people. I ain't that. Still using the same amount of power, about 1240 watts. And the party's getting started. I would say in another 30-45 seconds, maybe not even, this water is going to be boiling. And this is at the highest level it can get on the level setting. I stopped recording by means of habit, but I literally just turned the recording right back on. You can see it's at 57% and still showing 1200 and some odd watts. And this water is pretty much at a rolling boil. In this video, I'm not going to focus on the idea of time to boil water and all that jazz. I'm mainly interested in the feature set and how much power it uses, so that you can understand what kind of power station you can use this joint on and what you can accomplish for whatever your needs are. And then also in your menu, you have temperature. That's 300 degrees. Now that's interesting. Let's put an empty pot on here and see what this does. Because at 300 degrees, it's using about 1000 watts. I don't know how useful that information is to me, but I'm just kind of going with the flow here. See that I took the pot off, we got the error. Let's bring this pot over here. Let's do the saucepan. Back on. You can hear them enzymes. It jumped right up to 1200 watts at the 300 degrees. Now I want to get out of degrees and go back to the lowest power setting, which is 0.5. And let's see what 0.5 does when it kicks in. If it kicks in. Okay. So it kind of used about 400. I don't know if based on the 0.5, the power zone, that you can use as little as 200 watts. 100 watts. I don't see that. Now, if they want to play the numbers game and do, well, cumulative power over the hour equals to 100 watts, I respect that. That's not necessarily the most ideal thing to base it on, because with us in power stations, we're going off of how much watts our inverter can push. Now, interesting thing, you know, you have the EB3A, the EcoFlow River Max, the EcoFlow River Base, the EcoFlow River OG model that have what's called X Boost. Maybe I should try that on one of these. I'm gonna try that. You see what X Boost does, because my understanding is you should not do that on sensitive electronics, but things that use heat, you can. So I think I'll use the EB3A because my EcoFlow River is not charged. Because I'm thinking about the watt usage. Well, okay, let me take all of that back. What we have with the X Boost feature, the X Boost style feature, is the fact that we can get these induction stoves to go to a higher temperature. But the EB3A is supposedly rated to 600 watts on the inverter, I believe. The base model River is 300 watts, which is The River Max is 500 watts, and then on its X Boost it doubles to 1,000. Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling. Let me figure out how I'm going to test and what I'm going to do here to give you guys another example of using this on a power station. Now what I have here, Bluetti EB3A, I'm going to plug it in. The inverter is already on. I will tell you guys, I tried to use, I believe, this on a heater that supposedly only does 500 watts, and this failed. I don't have footage of it, but it was my experience. So let's turn this on. You notice it's going to start at the 5 level. I'm going to drop it all the way down as quickly as I can. So I'm going to do this live. I'm not going to cut away. Let's watch it. Output goes up to about 546. And it's doing that just fine. Let's push it up a little bit. Let's do maybe 1.5. Jump it. Oh yeah. It was like 6 something. You bugging, fam. It's pretty cool. Okay, next thing we're gonna turn on the boost feature of the EB3A and see what it does then. And shout out to Hobotech, because he's the one who explained what these boost features perform. What they do is they lower the voltage so that they can keep the amps at the amount of power that the device needs. So you may end up with 90 volts, 81 volts. And that's why sensitive devices can't use this feature, because that voltage variance dropping down that low could cause problems for the device because it's not getting the voltage that it wants. But they say with induction loads, induction cooktop, right? They say with induction loads that you can use the X Boost, but y'all tread carefully. I don't use X Boost. I'm just doing it for this situation. I have never used it ever. Check this out. It actually shows in the default details what happened. So it's a inverter fault, and that was right here up on that little exclamation point. So now let's go to settings. Power lift, that's what this is called. And then it gives me a warning: suitable for powering 1200 watt max heating devices. So it specifically says heating devices. The rated output power remains 600 watts. Do not power refrigerators, air conditioners, etc. There you go. Power lift mode is on. Device is going back on. It still has a fault. The AC light is blinking. I just held it and then it turned back on. And now let's do boom, and let's drop it all the way down again. Menu, all the way down to 0.5. It was doing 500. So we'll bring it up to whatever we did before, which I don't remember. Let's do 3.0. 5974. Okay. I heard some weird double beep, but it still did it. Let's go up to 4.5 and see what it does. Okay, this is getting an error. I'll see if it does it again. It had error 3. I may need to grab my instruction booklet and see what that means. Error 3. Okay, cool. So we're gonna turn it off. Let's see what that error is. We're trying to find some error codes here. Oh, look at that. It actually talks about what the power levels mean. Simmer, keep warm, 100 watts. They have to be going off of the how much power it uses per hour, because we know we saw much more power than that. Where are your error codes at? E3, voltage input is too high or too low. So this device has voltage protection. Boom, boom. How about that? That's pretty cool. It's like you can't cheat me, EB3A, EcoFlow, and all you companies that have that power lift feature. Interesting. So I feel like what you're looking at here is you're gonna have to have a device that has at least a 600 watt inverter to do anything, and you would probably have to do things kind of slow, but you could get it done. If you had some cold soup or something like that, you could warm it up. It may take you a little while, but it'll get it done at at whatever the level is that produces the 500 watts. But once you go over that, which is maybe about 3, then this device will trip your joints, and the power lift modes do not work because it senses the low voltage. Another thing I want to do a video on, now that we're talking about cooking on power stations, is I want to test out my 2 little less power hungry heaters. I'm gonna do that video soon. If that video is done, it'll be right here. If not,